Do you know what truly separates a mature woman who captivates a younger man from one he sees only as a mother figure? It's not what you think. It's not about age. It's not about looks. It's not even about money. It's something far more subtle. Something most women get wrong without even realizing it. If you've ever felt attracted to a younger man and noticed a sudden shift in energy the moment he learns your age, or if you've ever been in an awkward moment where you felt the need to justify yourself or compensate for something, this perspective might completely change how you see the situation. Because what I'm about to reveal goes against everything you've been told about relationships with a significant age gap. After observing hundreds of real-life cases and analyzing what truly works, I discovered something surprising. Women who build successful relationships with younger men do the exact opposite of what is commonly advised. And the difference is so clear that once you understand it, you'll see exactly why some connections blossom while others become uncomfortable memories you'd rather forget. Here's the truth. There's a very specific behavioral pattern that quietly repels younger men. And the issue isn't age, it's the invisible messages many women unconsciously send. Messages that scream insecurity, the need for approval, or a desperate urge to prove their worth. But before you assume this is just another shallow take on how to look younger or act a certain way, let me share something I've learned from women who truly thrive in these kinds of relationships. They don't compete with youth. They offer something entirely different, something a young woman simply cannot give. Picture this. You're a 45-year-old woman, recently divorced, with grown children, and finally time to enjoy life on your own terms. You meet a 32-year-old man at a social event. There's instant chemistry, but the moment the conversation gets personal, something shifts. He stays polite, but the spark fades. What happened? In most cases, it's not the age gap that changes the dynamic. It's how she reacts once she becomes aware of it. Maybe she starts cracking self-deprecating jokes about her age. Maybe she switches into protective mode, becoming maternal. Or perhaps she jumps into impress mode, talking non-stop about her accomplishments and stability. Do you know the first unconscious mistake many mature women make when they're attracted to a younger man? They become his caretaker. They treat him like a son, offering unsolicited advice, shielding him from things he can handle on his own, being overly helpful, or stressing about things he doesn't care about. Here's what no one tells you. When you do that, you awaken his instinct to be a son, not a lover. A younger man who's genuinely drawn to an older woman isn't looking for another mother. He already has one. He's looking for an equal, a partner, someone who can share in an adult connection, rich with depth, intensity, and mutual respect. Now imagine you're him. Would you be attracted to someone who treats you like you're fragile, helpless, or in need of protection? Attraction is built on admiration, equality, and shared excitement. It doesn't grow from a dynamic where one person is the guide and the other is the student. Let me tell you about Maria. She's 50, divorced after 25 years of marriage, and just beginning to date again. She meets David, a vibrant 35-year-old. Their connection is immediate. But slowly, Maria starts slipping into familiar habits. Whenever David shares a challenge at work, she turns into his advisor. When he wants to be spontaneous, she gives him reasons to think twice. When he expresses uncertainty, she provides the right answer, backed by her years of experience. But here's what Maria didn't realize. David wasn't looking for a life coach. He was looking for a partner. It becomes even more damaging when a woman tries to control the entire relationship dynamic from the start. She believes her life experience gives her the right to manage everything, to predict his next move, to shape his choices, to help him grow. But that control kills two of the most powerful ingredients of attraction: spontaneity and mystery. A younger man is drawn to energy, to unpredictability, to the thrill of discovering something new. When you already have everything mapped out, every outcome, every emotion, every decision, where is the space for him to feel like the main character in the story you're building together? Imagine that every time he makes a suggestion, you already know how it will end. Every time he shares an idea, you already have the better way. That kind of certainty may feel like strength to you, but to him it feels like suffocation. You already have the answer. Every time he wants to take a risk, you've already calculated the consequences. How would he feel? Probably like he's in a golden cage, comfortable, but without the freedom to grow. And here's something fascinating. Many mature women make a crucial mistake simply because they feel insecure about their age. When a younger man asks how old they are, they avoid the question, joke nervously, change the subject, or make negative comments about themselves. Do you know what message that sends? That age is a problem, that it's something to be ashamed of. But the woman who responds naturally and confidently, who doesn't apologize for her lived years, who can speak about her experience with elegance, instantly becomes more desirable. Why? Because she shows she's comfortable in her own skin, and that kind of comfort is magnetic. I remember a situation a client once shared with me. She was on a date with a younger man, and when he asked her age, she smiled and said, "I'm 43 years old, and every one of those years has taught me something valuable." No excuses, no nervous laughter, no avoidance. She simply stated her reality with grace. He wasn't fascinated by her age. He was fascinated by her confidence. Now let me tell you about another common mistake I see all the time. The obsession with looking younger. Don't get me wrong, it's perfectly fine to take care of yourself, to invest in your appearance, to stay in shape. But the problem begins when it comes from a place of desperation. When it becomes a frantic attempt to compete with 20-year-olds on their own turf. Do you know what happens when a younger man senses that you're trying to be something you're not? He loses interest, instantly. Because what attracted him to you in the first place wasn't your ability to mimic someone younger. It was precisely the qualities that come with maturity: confidence, presence, depth. A younger man seeking a mature woman isn't looking for a rejuvenated version of his peers. If he wanted that, he'd simply date someone his own age. What he's looking for is something different, something only you can offer. Let me tell you about Carmen, a 48-year-old woman who spent thousands of euros on cosmetic treatments to look younger. Botox fillers, high-end facials. She bought clothes designed for women in their 20s. When she met Andres, a 34-year-old man, she was sure her youthful look would win him over. But something strange happened. He was polite, but distant. Later, when Carmen reflected on the situation, she realized she had lost something essential: her authenticity. She was so focused on appearing young that she forgot to be herself. Her personality, her energy, her natural presence were buried under a mask of artificial youth. Here's something many women don't understand. Trying to impress him with professional success or financial stability can also backfire. Yes, it's wonderful that you're independent, successful, and that you've built something solid in your life. But when that becomes the center of how you present yourself, when every conversation is about your career, your properties, your travels, you're focusing on the wrong thing. Because attraction isn't built on resumes. It's built on emotional connection, on that feeling that life is more fun, more meaningful, more alive with this person beside you. Your accomplishments may earn respect, but not necessarily desire. Think about it from his perspective. If every conversation turns into a presentation of your achievements, how is he going to feel? Probably like he's in a job interview, not on a romantic date. And if you keep emphasizing your financial security, what are you really communicating? That your value lies in what you have, not in who you are. Now, one of the most subtle but damaging mistakes mature women make is excessive availability. Responding to messages at any hour, canceling your plans just to see him, always being free when he is, constantly complimenting him, making it obvious that your world revolves around his attention. It may feel like love, it may feel like genuine interest, but what he actually perceives is lack. And lack is never attractive, no matter how old you are. The woman who keeps her own rhythm, who has her own life, her own interests, who is available but not desperate, is the one who inspires both respect and desire. Imagine if every time he texts you, you respond instantly. Every time he suggests something, you say yes without hesitation. Every time he shares anything, you turn it into praise. How do you think he'll feel? Probably overwhelmed, and honestly a little bored. Because where's the challenge? Where's the mystery? Where's the sense that he's winning over someone truly special? But there's something even more subtle that I want you to understand. Many mature women fall into the trap of excessive seriousness. They believe that to be respected, they must always be rational, formal, in control. And in doing so, they suppress their most attractive qualities, their sensual and playful sides. Do you know what a younger man is really looking for in a mature woman? Not more responsibility, not more formality. He already has enough of that in his job and daily life. What he's looking for is lightness. Someone who can laugh, who can play, who can be spontaneous. A woman with vibrant energy, who also carries the depth and self-possession that only come with age. It's that rare combination of vitality and wisdom that makes her irresistible. It's not about being youthful, it's about being alive. Let me tell you about Patricia, a 51-year-old woman who had developed an extremely serious personality after her divorce. She believed that to be respected as a professional and as a single mother, she had to project total control at all times. When she met Roberto, a 36-year-old man, she brought that same energy into their dates. Their conversations were polite, but cold. She spoke about important topics, shared intelligent insights, and presented herself as responsible and mature. But Roberto didn't feel like he was on a date. He felt like he was in a business meeting. There was no spark, no laughter, no life. And finally, there's one more trap I need to mention: the game of forced indifference. Some women believe they need to pretend they don't care, to act aloof, to keep emotional distance so they won't seem needy. This is a huge mistake, because when you fake something, it always shows. And what he perceives is not mystery or strength, but coldness and arrogance. True maturity means you can show genuine interest without clinging, that you can express emotion without manipulating, that you can be open without overwhelming. When a mature woman pretends not to care, she shuts down one of her greatest strengths, her ability to connect emotionally, deeply, authentically. Young men, especially those used to superficial interactions with women their own age, often find this emotional depth incredibly attractive when it's genuine. Now let me share with you the root of all these mistakes. Because once you understand this, everything else falls into place. Most mature women enter these situations believing their age is a disadvantage, something they must compensate for. And that belief drives them to behave in ways that betray their true selves. They become anxious to prove their worth. They become controlling out of fear of losing his interest, or submissive, believing they should be grateful just to have his attention. But here's the truth that changes everything. Your age is not a disadvantage, it's a difference. And differences, when embraced rather than hidden, can be incredibly attractive. A younger man who is genuinely drawn to a mature woman isn't looking for her to compensate for anything. He's looking for exactly what she is, a woman with experience, with presence, with depth. A woman who has a perspective on life he doesn't yet have. Think about it from another angle. What can a mature woman offer a younger man that someone his own age can't? First, a life perspective that only time can give. Second, emotional stability that grows through lived experience. Third, a sense of personal freedom, a comfort in her own skin that many younger women, still in the process of discovering themselves, simply haven't reached yet. But most importantly, a mature woman who has lived, who has struggled, who has overcome, and who has learned. She carries an emotional richness that is deeply seductive. It's not about the number of years on a calendar. It's about a life consciously lived. So what's the secret of women who truly succeed in these dynamics? They don't try to seduce. They simply share who they are. They don't fight their nature. They celebrate it. They don't apologize for their experience. They embody it as strength. When a woman stops trying to impress and simply allows herself to be real, when she stops competing with youth and offers something completely different, when she fully accepts herself and moves through the world from a place of self-ownership, that's when she becomes truly irresistible. Let me tell you about Eleonina, a 46-year-old woman who had endured a difficult divorce and raised 2 children on her own. When she met Marcos, a 33-year-old man, she didn't hide her story. She didn't pretend to be someone else. She simply shared her life as it was. She spoke about the sleepless nights of parenting alone, the strength she discovered through hardship, and the quiet pride of having rebuilt her life. Not to earn sympathy, but simply to show who she really was. And Marcos, he wasn't captivated by her past, he was captivated by her presence, by the strength, grace, and wisdom she had cultivated through her journey. Because here's what many people don't realize. A younger man drawn to a mature woman isn't seeking an upgraded version of what he already knows. He's seeking something entirely new. He's looking for someone with real presence, someone who doesn't need constant validation, someone who stands in her own energy, unapologetically. Think of it this way. When you try to prove that you are desirable, you lose your magnetism. True attraction happens when someone sees your value, without you needing to point it out. And here's something beautiful I want you to understand. A woman who respects herself, who takes care of herself out of love, not lack, who shows herself without fear because she knows who she is, that woman is magnetic at any age. Why? Because she radiates something that can't be faked, authenticity. And authenticity is one of the rarest things in modern relationships. Everyone's trying to be what they think others want. But when you meet someone who simply is, no performance, no pretending, it creates an instant connection. Picture yourself at a social event. You meet someone who's not trying to impress anyone, not putting on a show, not hiding or exaggerating, just being. How does that person make you feel? Probably relaxed, comfortable, genuinely curious. Now here's the greatest irony in all of this. The women who are most successful with younger men are often the ones who try the least. They're too busy living rich, full lives to worry about proving anything. And that energy, of wholeness, of self-sufficiency, of presence, is incredibly attractive. They're not trying to fill a void. They're sharing from abundance. And that difference, it's immediately felt. When a mature woman is rooted in herself, at peace with her past, excited about her present, and optimistic about her future, that energy is contagious. Young men, often still wrestling with insecurities and uncertainty, are drawn to that calm sense of self. But let me be clear, this doesn't mean you should become his mentor, life coach, or spiritual guide. It means your very presence is inspiring, not because you're trying to inspire him, but because you're inspired yourself. When you finally understand that your age is not a flaw but a feature, when you stop seeing your experience as baggage and start seeing it as a gift, when you realize you don't need to compete with anyone because you offer something no one else can, that's when everything changes. Because here's the truth. You have something a 20-year-old doesn't. Perspective. You have clarity about what you want and what you don't. You have emotional steadiness that comes from surviving life's storms. You have the inner calm of someone who no longer needs to prove anything to anyone. A young woman may be beautiful, intelligent, and fun. But can she offer the depth of someone who has truly lived? Can she give the emotional steadiness of someone who has faced chaos and found her way through? Can she offer the freedom of someone who is no longer searching for herself, but already knows who she is? And all of that, when fully embraced, is irresistibly seductive. Because the young man who is drawn to you isn't looking for a mother, he's not looking for a mentor, and he's definitely not looking for a teenager in disguise. He's looking for a woman with presence, with truth, with self-respect, a woman who doesn't need validation to feel desirable, because she already knows she is. He's looking for someone who can share her depth, not from a pedestal, but from genuine lived experience. Someone who can invite him into emotional landscapes he's never explored, not because she's older, but because she's lived more deeply. Let me tell you about Adriana, a 52-year-old woman who had traveled the world, built a successful career, raised her children, and overcome a serious illness. When she met Julian, a 35-year-old man, she didn't share her life story to impress him. She simply was who she was, a woman who had lived fully. Julian was captivated, not by the events of her past, but by the way Adriana inhabited her life. There was a calmness in her, a quiet confidence, not born of arrogance, but of deep self-acceptance. When she spoke, he felt like he was in the presence of someone who truly knew herself, and that's the key. It's not about age, it's about energy. It's not about years, it's about presence. It's not about how much you've experienced, it's about how much of that experience you've integrated into your being. When a woman truly understands this, when she stops fighting who she is and begins to celebrate it, when she realizes that her worth needs no defense or justification, that's when she becomes that unforgettable woman. The woman who walks into a room and instantly draws admiration, not because of what she wears or says, but because of how she carries herself. The woman everyone wants to know better, not because she's loud, but because she radiates something real. Because at the end of the day, what truly attracts isn't perfection, it's authenticity. Not youth, but vitality. Not inexperience, but the freshness of spirit combined with the depth of a life consciously lived. And that, my dear, is something only you can offer. You don't need to apologize for it. You don't need to compensate for it. You don't need to hide it. You need to celebrate it, embrace it, and let it be the foundation of your natural magnetism. When a mature woman finally understands this, when she stops seeing her age as an obstacle and starts seeing it as her superpower, when she realizes that the very things she thought were flaws are actually her greatest assets, that's when everything changes. Not just in her romantic life, but in her entire life. So stop dimming your light to fit into someone else's idea of what's desirable. You are not a placeholder for youth. You are the embodiment of lived beauty, of earned wisdom, of quiet power. Your age is not a countdown, it's a crown. And the man who truly sees you, really sees you, is not intimidated by your strength. He is drawn to it. He doesn't need you to be less. He craves the fullness of who you are. You don't need to compete. You don't need to explain. You only need to be. Because when you embrace every scar, every story, every season of your life with pride and softness, you don't just become desirable. You become unforgettable. Not because you tried, but because you finally allowed yourself to be seen.